What's up everyone? In this video, we're going to go over how to use field and collection hooks in PayloadCMS. But before we get started, don't forget to check and make sure that you're subscribed to my channel, and be sure to hit the bell icon so you get notifications every time I drop a new video about PayloadCMS and more. Now let's dive in. We'll be continuing our discussion of hooks in this video. We've already talked about how to use hooks in your payload config and in your global documents, but now we'll dive into the field and collection hooks. While collections sit at a higher level in the hierarchy of concepts in PayloadCMS, the number of hooks collections contain is quite large. So we'll start with field hooks to get those knocked out fairly quickly. Some of these hooks are repeated with information from the global hooks video, so be sure to watch that video before moving on with this one. Let's get started with field hooks. Field hooks are hooks that run on documents at the field level. You can execute your own logic during each event in the document lifecycle, but instead of influencing an entire global or collection, you'll only impact the field on which you included the hook. You can add hooks to a field by typing in the hooks property in your field config. So we'll do that now. When we'll go to our post collection, just in this plain text field I can add the hooks option and then open an empty object right there. It's important to add that if you're trying to use hooks to change the shape or type of data at the field level, you're likely going to get errors from GraphQL. Those kinds of changes are more appropriate for global or collection hooks. You can organize your hooks for fields in a couple of different ways. If you want to keep everything separate, you could create config files for each field and export and import them into your collection. This would allow you to reuse the fields and their hooks in other collections, but it can be harder to maintain and understand what's happening across your project. What we'll do is include a new field hooks directory in our collection directory. So I'll add that right now. In our collections, we'll go to posts and we're going to add a new directory and call it field hooks. Next, we'll create a TypeScript file called index for our field hooks. So I'll just go to new TypeScript file and call this index. Unlike global hooks, all field hooks are provided with the same arguments, so let's explore each of those arguments. So first, we're going to initialize one field hook by importing field hook from payload, and we'll export a new const that we'll call afterChange field hook, and we'll assign field hook to that, and then set this equal to an async arrow function, and then open up the function. So let's clean this up a little bit, and now we have our arguments. So let's start with the first one, which is collection. Collection returns the collection where the hook is running. If we were to use this field in our post collection, it would return the entire collection for our posts collection. But if the field is included in our header global document, the collection will return null. If the field is in a global, the global argument, which is the second argument here, will return the global in which the hook is running. If the field is in a collection, this one will return null. Data, the next argument, will return the full document in the afterRead hook, but it will return the incoming data passed through the operation for any hooks that run at the create or update operations. So if we use the beforeValidate hook, for example, we'll see the data from the current submission be returned. Operation is the next argument, and it's used to check which operation is currently running. This is helpful because both create and update operations happen within beforeValidate, beforeChange, and afterChange. That means you can use conditional logic to change and route your data argument depending on which operation the hook is currently executing. So we have an afterChange field hook open right now. So we could do if operation is equal to create. We can then have this do something. And then we can do else if the operation is equal to update. We can do something else. The next argument is original doc, which returns your document before changes were applied when used within the update operation. When used in afterChange, this will return the resulting document. The next one is override access, which will return a boolean denoting if the current operation is overriding your access control. Field will simply return the field the hook is running on, while find many returns a boolean to check if you're running against finding one or finding many like you could in the afterRead hook. Path simply returns the path to your field. PreviousDoc works in the afterChange hook. This returns the document before changes are applied. This allows you to check differences between your new doc and the previous version. You can use previousValue to see what the previous value of the field was in the beforeChange and afterChange hooks. Using value, you can see the current value of the field. This allows you to do conditional logic to create branches of behavior based on the results of the check. So another example here, if the operation is create, do something, if our previous value is equal to value, then we can have this do nothing. Else, if previous value, just to state this explicitly, is not equal to value, do something else. The next argument is rec, which can be used to access the local API in a hook. This is the web request object and allows you to perform more advanced queries within the field hook. Context is also available just like other hooks, but we won't talk about that here. You can use it to pass custom context between hooks. Previous sibling doc, schema path, and sibling doc with locales are also in there, but we won't cover those. Now that we have all the arguments, we can go over each of the hooks available at the field level. Each individual field hook doesn't need its own type imported. All we need to do, like we did at the beginning, is import field hook from payload. So here are the hooks that we have available at the field level. We have beforeValidate, then we have beforeChange. After beforeChange is afterChange. Then we have afterRead. And then lastly, we have beforeDuplicate. So beforeValidate runs before the update operation, so it allows you to format field data before it's validated. This is helpful if you have data in a sibling field that needs to be transformed before it can be accepted by the field with validation. For example, if you have a slug field that is required, but you need to include a title first, you can use beforeValidate to generate a slug from the title field upon saving. This operation won't fail because the slug field won't be validated until after it's properly populated. beforeChange takes place after validation and runs within the create and update operations. The data being saved is now validated and the document lifecycle will continue. You can use beforeChange to perform additional validation or transformation at the field level. afterChange executes after the value of the field has been changed and saved in the database. You can use this hook to check if the value of the field matches the previous value, and if it doesn't, execute some kind of custom logic like logging the change or using the rec argument to query another collection. So we created that afterChange hook. Let's import it here, afterChange field hook. And so when this imports into the collection, it can now be used in the hook array for afterChange. afterRead runs after the field is read from the database. This allows you to format the field for output, like making a date more readable. beforeDuplicate is a hook we haven't gone over yet. This hook is run when you duplicate your document. This allows you to adjust required fields or fields with the unique property set to true when duplicating the document. It's called beforeValidate and beforeChange hooks. By default, Payload will add an indication that the required field is a copy, but you can change this behavior by using the beforeDuplicate hook. Now for collection hooks. Collection hooks run on documents within the specified collection the hook is created in. All hooks allow you to execute your own logic during operations and events in the PayloadCMS dashboard, but collections allow you to do this specifically at the collection level. There are many collection hooks, and for this video, we'll cover any hook that isn't used in the auth-enabled collections. If you'd like to see these in a future video, please just let me know down in the comments. I'm happy to cover it. You create a hook in a collection by adding the hooks option and assigning an empty object to it. So I'll do that at the bottom of our post collection, where we'll just add hooks and then open an empty object. Just like our global hooks, we'll want to create a hooks directory in the same folder as our collection. In this case, we'll create the hooks directory in our posts folder next to the field hooks folder. So we'll do a new directory and call it hooks. And so now this is at the same level of our field hooks directory. Now, normally in the hooks directory, you would create a different file for each hook, but we're going to just add one index TypeScript file to house all of our collection hooks. At this point, we've discussed at length what each provided argument means. If you need a refresher about what each argument means, you can scrub back through this video or watch the global hooks video to get the rundown. I'll mention the provided arguments for each hook and explain only new arguments from here on out. Each collection hook will need its type imported from payload. So starting with before operation, you'll need import type collection before operation hook. And we'll add that from payload. Then we'll export a new const called before operation hook. And we'll add collection before operation hook type and set it equal to an async arrow function and open the function there. In before operation, you have access to collection, context, operation, and the rec object. Operations include create, read, update, delete, login, refresh, and forgot password, which you can then use to create branching logic to run different side effects during that operation. This allows you to have extreme fine-tuned control over what happens before each operation. For beforeValidate, you're going to import type collection beforeValidate hook. And then we're going to do the same thing by exporting a const called beforeValidate hook and set this equal to collection beforeValidate hook. Set it equal to an async arrow function and open the function. This hook runs before the create and update operations, so you can add or format data before validating it on the server side. This doesn't work with client-side validation if you used the validate function, so keep that in mind before using this hook. We have access to collection, context, data, operation, original doc, and the rec object for this hook. beforeChange is next. We're going to import our collection beforeChange hook from payload, and then we're going to export const called beforeChange hook and assign the collection beforeChange hook. Set this equal to an async arrow function. This hook runs within the create and update operations, so you can modify the shape of the data to be saved after it's been validated. You have access to collection, context, data, operation, original doc, and rec for this hook. The afterChange hook requires you to import type collection afterChange hook, and from there we're going to export a new const called afterChange hook and assign it the collection afterChange hook there. Set it equal to an async arrow function. Open up the function. This hook runs after the create or update operations and data is saved. You're then able to use the resulting data. For example, you can use this hook to update a user profile both in PayloadCMS and in your CRM. You have access to collection, context, doc, operation, previousDoc, and again, the rec object. Next is beforeRead, which requires you to import type collection beforeRead hook, and then we'll export another const called beforeRead hook and assign it to our collection beforeRead hook type. Set it equal, again, to an async arrow function, and then open up the arguments. This hook runs before the find and find by ID operations are transformed for output by afterRead. This allows you to access hidden fields before they're removed. You have access to the collection, context, doc, query, and rec object as well. For afterRead, you'll import our collection afterRead hook, and then to initialize the hook, you're going to export const afterRead hook, assign the collection afterRead hook type, set it equal to an async arrow function, and open that up. This hook is the final step before a document is returned. It hides protected fields and removes fields that users don't have access to. In this hook, you have access to collection, context, doc, query, and rec. Next up is the beforeDelete, which runs before the delete operation is run. You can use this hook to send data somewhere before deleting a document. For example, you could set up a hook to send an email each time a document is deleted from a sensitive collection. You'll need to import type collection beforeDelete hook, and then export a new const called beforeDelete hook, and set that to the collection beforeDelete hook. Open a new async arrow function, and then use whatever logic you'd like to use here. Any returned values are discarded since the document is being deleted. You have access to the collection, context, ID of the document being deleted, and the rec argument as well. AfterDelete runs after the delete operation removes the document from your database. Since this is a delete function, all returned values will be discarded. You can use this hook to run any kind of business logic after a document has been deleted. You'll need to import our collection afterDelete hook, and then use export const afterDelete hook, assign it to our collection afterDelete hook, set it equal to an async arrow function, and then perform any action you'd like to see in this hook. You're able to access collection, context, doc, ID, and rec in the afterDelete hook. After operation gives you the flexibility to modify the result of any operation or run side effects based on your own custom logic. Similar to the before operation hook, you're able to specify the operation you want to modify. The options are create, find by ID, update, update by ID, delete, delete by ID, login, refresh, and forgot password. Operation is an argument in the after operation hook, so you can pass that into your async arrow function and then use if-else statements to drive custom behavior for this hook. So we'll need to import our collection after operation hook. Then we'll need to export a new const called after operation hook, assign it to the collection after operation hook type, set it equal to an async arrow function, and then I already mentioned the collection argument is available here, and you also have args, rec, operation, and result. The last hook we'll cover in this video is after error. This is triggered by an error that takes place in your Payload app. This is another great hook that allows you to send an email when there's an error in the collection or if you have a third-party logging service. You can access this hook by importing type collection after error hook, and then exporting a const called after error hook, assign it to our collection after error hook type, set it equal to an async arrow function, and now you're able to access the following arguments for this hook. Error, which is the returned error for this hook, context, GraphQL result, rec, collection, and result. So when an error occurs, you could send an email to your development team what error took place in which collection. This makes troubleshooting errors much easier since you and your dev team will know where to look without much digging. And now in each of these examples, I used an async arrow function, but if you recall from my last video, you can have these be synchronous functions as well, just depending on your use case. And now that after all of those hooks are all initialized, we can import them here in our hosts collection and use after error hook, for example, in an array. As you get started with projects, you can reference this video and my last one on global hooks to create powerful and custom side effects in your documents. This video was obviously just an overview of what each hook does, and the true power in these hooks is in actually applying them to your project using custom business logic. Some key use cases for hooks are on-demand revalidation with nextjs, programmatically setting fields from sibling fields, sending emails after operations, and even integrating with your third-party CRM. The options really are endless. Please make sure that you're subscribed to my channel as I continue to release more content about PayloadCMS and more. I use these concepts and more in my live coding streams, so feel free to check out the streams or the videos I cut from the streams to see PayloadCMS in action. If this was helpful to you, please like the video and share it with others. I'll see you on the next one.